I hear you. You guys keep leaving comments and asking some burning questions about how to improve your photography on your phone. Well, this video is for you. Hey, what's up everyone? My name's Seb, and if you're new around here, I make videos all about mobile phone photography. Now, I've made a similar video a while back, but since then the channel has kind of grown quite a bit and I still see comments and questions that made me think it's probably time for another video, but this time around with more tips and also more do's and don'ts, because there's no reason for gatekeeping. It's all about sharing my experience with you guys. This was the whole point of creating this community in the first place. So if this video helps at least one person, then that's my job done. So to kick things off, let's start with a very common question that I get all the time. Why don't my photos look like yours? And whilst there are most likely like a million reasons why, the biggest one is probably because you shoot your photos in JPEG. And whilst on modern mirrorless cameras they don't look half as bad, that's because the phones tend to really go all in on post-processing with over-the-top sharpness, HDR doing your photos dirty and pumping way too much saturation. And that's only the start, because see, phone ISPs or image signal processors try to understand what you're shooting based on trained AI models and various scenarios. But how can he know for sure that it is how you see it with your own eyes? Well, the short answer is it doesn't. Don't get me wrong, sometimes you will get it pretty good, but most of the time you'll be looking at a photo and you'll probably think, meh. So to tell the camera to back off a bit and to let you shoot more natural photos with much less processing, you need to switch to RAW mode. And most phones nowadays will let you do that. But remember, RAW mode is a bit like a raw steak. You need to cook it first, meaning that you'll need to take that raw file into a photo editor like Lightroom, for example. And that leads us to tip number 2. Edit your photos and turn that raw blank canvas into an amazing photo. And to answer that question again, if you want your photos to look a bit like mine, you will absolutely need to learn how to edit, because there's not such a thing as a magic button that you can press that will do, all the masking and the color correction and the color grading. Yes, there are presets, but those need tweaking for each photo that you take. It's like buying a pair of jeans that says one size fits all. It's impossible. So you'll need to tailor each photo to your specific taste. And it doesn't matter which editing software you use, or whether you're doing on your laptop, on your tablet, on your phone, but you need to get out of your comfort zone and start learning and practicing. And believe me, in no time, you'll get amazing results. Now, a big mistake that I see people making very often is taking just a one shot, like point, shoot, and move on to the next spot. Guys, never settle for the one photo. It's not like you're paying for the film rolls or the paper that you're shooting on. You're shooting in digital. It's so easy to take a photo and review it on the back of your phone and think it's okay. But when you look at it on the monitor, then you realize that it wasn't focused properly and you're beating yourself up because you didn't take that few backup shots. And yes, I've been there. The reality is that when you see my videos and you see my photos on the screen, what you don't actually see is how long I stayed in the set spot for, or how many back shots I took, or how many different angles I took. What seems like the perfect shot to you is probably one out of maybe 20, 30, or even maybe more that I took. But that is the whole point. Don't settle for the one shot. Take the photo in landscape mode, in portrait, try different exposure levels. When you get back, you just delete the ones that didn't make the crop. It's that easy, and at least you covered your back. Now, shooting in pro mode or manual mode is what is going to take your photos to the next level. Shooting in automatic is okay, but what you're essentially doing is letting the camera decide for you what the end result will be, and that could be the difference between an awesome shot and a grainy and noisy one. And the reason for that is simple. The camera will do anything to avoid camera shake and low brightness. So automatically it will crank up the ISO drastically and leave you with something you probably won't be happy with. And being able to adjust the settings for each shot is what will allow you to make some artistic choices before you even press the shutter button. Like how fast you set your shutter speed at will depend on how much motion you want to introduce in a photo, for example, or how wide your aperture is to get some nice bokeh in your photos. And being in charge of the ISO, the shutter speed, and even the aperture in some cases will help you create some amazing photos. But if you're not used to it, it will take some time to familiarize yourself with the manual mode. Remember, it's all about practice. Right, so let's face it, light is pretty important. Without it, then there would be no photography to start with. When shooting with mobile phones, it's even more important than when you're shooting on a big camera, and that's all to do with the size of the sensors. The smaller the sensor, the less physical surface there is to gather light. So what that means is that you need to plan ahead. So whether you're shooting in low light or a very harsh sunny day. So for example, if you wanted to do, I don't know, some panning shots of buses in London during the day or capturing a moving subject, you'd need to reduce your shutter speed, but your photos would look still way overexposed. So you'd need to use an ND filter to counteract the amount of light. On the other hand, if you were to shoot some low light photography, make sure to have a tripod handy or, I don't know, use your environment to stabilize your shots, because yes, on big cameras, you can crank up the ISO right away up there without too much problem. But on the phone, it's not a luxury that you get. And talking about ISO, phones nowadays allow you to go quite high. But believe me, that's not a game that you want to play. You'll lose. So here's something that I do very often. I lock my ISO depending on the scene. So what that means is that more often than not, I will lock my ISO between 50 and 200, depending on whether I shoot during the day or the night. So I know that the camera won't destroy my photos by introducing it a lot of noise. And then all I have to worry about is the shutter speed and the aperture. So having the ISO under control is definitely at the top of my list when I take photos on the phone. And again, depending on how big your sensor is, you might be able to go a little bit higher to like, I don't know, 400 ISO if you're using the main lens on the Xiaomi 14 Ultra, for example. Like I always say, 90% of the photo is about a good edit, but also a good composition. And I already touched on the subject of not just taking, the one shot of your subject, but I do mean it. Go to town, try different angles in both portrait and landscape, challenge yourself, try new things. Yes, some may not work, but you'll surprise yourself. The thing about composition is that, yes, there are rules, but at the same time, rules are there to be broken. You can use, for example, a rule of thirds and using a grid to help you composing your shots, or leading lines to guide the viewer's attention to a certain part of the image. Or you can make your photos more interesting by going with the rule of odds too. But there are so many rules that people just swear by, and you can look them up online via, YouTube or Google. But what I say is, the more you practice, the more you'll learn. I know it's cliche, but believe me, it works. And composition is probably the area where most people will struggle with when they first start photography. So here's a couple of tips, guys. Try not to shoot from eye level. Shoot from different angles. I don't know, from the top, from the floor, basically any angle that's unusual that will attract the viewer's attention. Also, try to give your shots some depth by including some elements in the foreground, for example. Once again, you can learn all there is to know about composition and the rules and what not to do, but the only way to really learn is to go out there and practice. Now, I thought I'd include a couple of tips about the video aspect too, as I know a lot of you guys want to know about that. But keep your eyes peeled, because watch this space. I will probably be making a series of videos very soon about mobile phone videography. For now though, I'll say that the most important thing to shoot videos on the mobile phone is the app that you use. See, 99% of the first-party apps don't allow you to shoot videos at high bit rate, and that is probably one of the reasons why your footage will kind of look mediocre when viewed on anything but your phone screen. So obviously I'll go in much more detail in a separate video, like I said before, but the app that I currently use, and that is 100% not sponsored, is MC Pro 24 FPS. And I know there are like many other apps too, but this one is the best compromise when it comes to consistency, reliability, and ease of use on the field. So this next one to me is very important, guys. It's okay to get your inspiration from others on Instagram, YouTube, and various social platforms, but do not compare yourself to them, because it's really easy to feel demotivated and deflated and maybe even wanting to give up, because you're looking at your work and you're comparing it to others with years of experience. But the thing is, everyone has to start somewhere. Look, that's the sorts of photos that I used to take when I first started photography on an old point and shoot camera back in the day. I mean, yes, looking back, they were pretty bad, but at the time I was pretty happy about them, and that's what gave me the enthusiasm to keep at it and to carry on shooting, and eventually you learn new things. Instead of looking at other people's work, go on YouTube and learn a new technique and go out there, practice it until you're happy with the results. Now, as a final tip, let's talk about accessories. As you get to understand your camera more and more, you might become limited in certain scenarios. And that's why earlier I was talking about the ND filters. And I think that anyone wanting to take that step further with the hobby should own a few things. First of all, depending on the phone that you have, you'll need a case that can take camera filters. For the Xiaomi, there are loads online, and even Xiaomi themselves made one for the 14 Ultra. There are a lot of options out there for most phones, and even universal clip-on ones. Then, in terms of filters, I'd recommend two types of ND filters. A variable ND1, which is essential if you're going to shoot video or you want to do some long exposure, and a fixed ND filter, which is a stronger one that allows me to shoot even in the brightest of sunlight, like doing some panning shots, for example. Another important one that I use most, well, I'd say 99% of the time, is a diffusion filter or pro mist filter or black mist filter. They come in various strengths, but in a nutshell, they help make your photos and videos less harsh and less digital. They diffuse the light better and give your highlights a better roll off. And at night, they're incredible at making bright light sources looking more natural. Then a circular polarizer can also be essential depending on the type of photography that you do. So for example, if you're into shooting cars, they really help in decreasing the amount of reflections that you get on the car body or the mirrors, or even glass in general. And that is something that is pretty much impossible to achieve in post. So a CPL filter or circular polarizer filter is essential. And my last recommendation is a must-have, a tripod. So if you're going to work in low light, or if you're doing a lot of landscape photography, for example, you'll need a tripod. So I highly suggest going for a small and light one, pretty much like the one I have. I think it's the K&F travel one. I don't know. I'll list it down in the description, guys. And basically it folds up to pretty much nearly nothing. So that rounds up my main 10 tips to take your photography to the next level. And whilst it's aimed at people shooting on mobile phones, it also applies and it remains true for anyone with any camera. The principles are the same. And of course, if you guys have more tips and you want to share them, make sure to write them down in the comments so we can all benefit from them. So I hope you guys have at least taken one thing away from this video and that it helped you out. And if it has, make sure to give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet, there's no time like the present to do it. That would really mean a lot. So as always, thank you so much for watching the video. Take care, and I'll catch you all in the next one.